Hello and welcome to GameGuru live broadcast. No number, don't really have a title yet. This is going to be a little more unscripted than the previous 145 broadcasts because we're changing up the format. And the format is still to be decided. However, the general gist is we're going to lend more time to questions and answers. So you get to ask more questions, I get to answer more of them. Also a great opportunity in a forum for me to demonstrate more of the use of GameGuru Max. So if any questions come along that would be better served with a physical demonstration, I can set that up and show you how to do a thing or where to find a thing in GameGuru Max and answer it that way rather than do it completely verbally. So before we get into that, because I've rearranged the broadcast software a little bit. You'll see what I'm talking about in a little while. But before I get to the Q&A, which is kept from the previous format, I just want to start off with a little bit of news. In fact, before I even get to the news, I'll just point out the differences in case you're relatively new to the broadcasts. We usually start off on the screen where you actually see the browser on a GameGuru Classic, and then we switch to GameGuru Max. And this time I'm starting off immediately within the GameGuru Max software in what we call the GameGuru Max Hub, which is on the demo section where you can see all the demo games. That way it's just sort of, it sets the theme for what might happen in broadcast to come, where we can quickly dive in and use the software and talk about the software as it's being used. And if there's new things, new features, new fixes that have been done, then I can demonstrate those immediately as well because the software is already up and running. So that's why you're seeing this off the bat. Verbally, on GameGuru Classic Land, we're imminent for what we call the June update, which is all the bug fixes we've fixed since the March update of this year. So that is scheduled for next week. It's currently in a beta build, so if you were interested in checking that out in advance, it's available as a beta on Steam, so you can go check that out, switch to it, make sure that if there is a fix that you have reported and we have marked as fixed, you get to check it out before the official release. So that's the June update. There'll be an announcement next week, so we'll let you know when that's available on Steam. On the GameGuru Max news side, the work of last week, it may have leaked out, and if you've been going onto the EXP builds, you may have sort of figured it out as well. We have added rudimentary and basic and first version support for Steam Workshop. For those who don't know, Steam Workshop is sort of like a community content sharing platform that Steam provide, which allows anyone to create some assets, upload them to Steam, and then the rest of the Steam community for that product can discover those content, download them, use them in the product, rate them, have comments about them. It's a really great ecosystem for sharing content. The first version was always intended, however, to open the door to a very specific scenario that we found ourselves in immediately after version 1, which is it's a really good word, but it begins with P and I can't remember it. Proliferation? I don't think that is even a word. The speed at which scripts are being updated and improved and added to the tune that would practically be putting a build out every day, every time a script changed. So the first version of the Steam Workshop support is essentially to solve that problem. So now when a script is edited or changed, at the moment that is prolifically dominated by Necron59, and when he makes a script change, because of the features of the Steam Workshop that have been granted to him, when he actually makes an update to his script, he can upload it to the Steam Workshop. GameGuru Max can identify that workshop item as a trusted item and immediately update the software. No need to wait for public builds or EXP builds. Trusted authors of workshop items can have their changes released immediately into the community. So we're dry running that to see how it works. It's been running for a while already and it's working really good. There was a thought of rolling this out quickly so everyone used it, but there was a couple of concerns raised, and it has happened before and it most likely will happen again, where someone who doesn't quite know copyright law or rules of intellectual property will take somebody else's content and upload it as their workshop item, which immediately then goes out to everyone in the Steam community. And guess who gets blamed? TGC. So we're going to have to find a way in which we can allow free sharing of content, that's scripts, images, objects, sound effects, all those sorts of lovely things amongst the community, but in a safe way that doesn't lend itself to piracy or copyright infringement and all those nasty things. So yeah, we're going to continue to discuss it. We'll look at options. Right now, I think our option's a good one, where we just select 1 or 2 contributors who are already known for contributing a lot to the community, and then granting them, or rather their Steam ID, trusted status. And even then we've got some additional moderation to make sure that the workshop items go out carefully initially to make sure that everything runs fine and the system works. Once it's been used for a while, we're pretty happy that it's stable. By then we will also have discovered the best way in which to moderate and make sure that no illicit content gets through the workshop system and into the community, to the sadness of the original author or artist who didn't necessarily want their content sharing with the whole wide world. So that discussion is continuing, and I'll fill you in future broadcasts on how we're getting on with that discussion and what plans we might have to open up the workshop. But just to give you a little sneak peek, only I and Necrim can see this right now, which is an additional tab in the hub called Workshop Uploader. These are my items. If anyone remembers Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the box product, you have to go back away to get software in a box product, but there was a little plastic bag in the box that was completely empty and contained the an invasion fleet that was so small you couldn't even see it. So I've created a workshop item, Lee's Space Fleet, which is so small there's nothing in it, literally because there's nothing in it. And as you can see here, you can this first implementation that I've just sort of set out and tested, but it's not been field tested yet, is the sharing of audio, objects, images, particle effects that you've created, and scripts, that is behaviors. And I'm sure there's going to be some other media types that we want to cover and expand the amount of detail that you want to throw in. But it's super, super simple. You can create an item, then once you've created it, it shows up on your list here. And then at any time you can click on the item and the content you may have updated on your local PC, this button changes to update, you click that and it updates the item. As soon as it's updated, everyone who's subscribed to the item instantly gets the update too. You effectively become your own mini developer and you don't need to wait on us to click the build button. You get to upload your content immediately. So the concept in theory is brilliant. We just have to make sure that there's some kind of policing of it to make sure that the content isn't inappropriate and it's not an abused system. So I just wanted to mention that's what's been worked on last week, and that's up and running and is now servicing the behaviors. So when there's behavior fixes, you will get them immediately. Well, when you've logged onto the Steam client and you've got auto update switched on, you'll get those updates immediately each time you run GameGuru Max and launch it from the Steam client. Another thing I'd like to share and show, if I can click the right button, which I think is this one. This document was sent to me, I think about a week, more than a week ago. Not everyone's seen it, but anyone who's really vocal in the community has probably heard about it. And I won't bore you by reading off the slides. I don't do that anymore when presenting. But I can give you the gist. Currently we do have a project system, but it's not to everyone's liking, and it doesn't follow the standard trends of a project system that you'll find in other game and app creation tools. And so this document was proposed to correct that omission and ensure that GameGuru Max has an excellent project management system. And so far, I think everyone who's seen this document agrees. And so you'll probably find a link somewhere on Discord to this discussion where you can contribute to it. But the upshot is, it's very similar to what we've got now, except for one small but important addition. You know the writables folder, we call it the writables folder, that you usually find in your documents, GameGuru Max, GameGuru Apps and then GameGuru Max. Everything beyond that folder are writables. That means you can add, subtract, change, all those sorts of things. It's malleable. You can write and store anything you've created in that area. The small change is that that area can be on a per project basis. So a project essentially contains everything that's been added, subtracted, changed over the course of the development of that project. And you can see the benefits. You can basically take the whole folder, zip it up and back it up, and you'll always have a copy of all the media of your project. The one small bone of contention that I originally raised, but I'm happy to relent on it, is that if you've got a project that uses a lot of stock media, that stock media is copied into the project folder, thus having two copies of that media, one in the out-of-the-box repository that comes from Steam, and then a second copy of those media files that now lives in that particular project because that particular project used those medias. And if you ever wanted to sort of take that folder and zip it up and give it to someone else, they don't have to go hunting around for reference material. All the media is now local to that particular folder. But there may be an option, a tick box, where you can still reference from the source, the out-of-the-box stuff. However, I think the general trend is, no, we want all the media in the project so I know everything is, and I don't want it sprayed all over the place. So it's not a huge change, but it is sort of a fundamental and potentially permanent shift in how projects will be viewed from 2023 onwards. So if you are interested in this, this is not for everyone. This is more for the people who are taking their game development very seriously and want an in single location for all of their game project files. Please weigh in on the conversation. If you can get access to this document, read it, and please feedback. No immediate plans to start implementing this. It's not a difficult thing to implement, but we want to get consensus and agreement on exactly what we're implementing before we add yet another project schema, only for it to be rejected by a chunk of the community. So let's all agree, and then we'll go on and implement it. So just letting you know about the project idea and where it is right now, and I'll give you another update, as I said, in future news updates, in future live broadcasts at the end of each month. And I didn't mention that. I mentioned it in the broadcast 145, but one of the changes in the format is that the live broadcast will happen only once a month, and that's every last Wednesday of each month. So this is the last Wednesday of May, and there'll be whatever the date is in June, the last Wednesday at 7 p.m. BST, British Summer Time, will be the next one. And so we'll have a whole month to collect new news, to bug fix, to add little functionalities here and there, and also to assemble everything that the community is doing, and hopefully I can deliver a summary on what's been going on. Some of it you might find interesting, other things you might not, and you're sticking around for the Q&A where you get to ask your burning question. And only today, it was either today or yesterday, it was very recently, another subject came up on Discord, and I think it's here's a link. So if you go to the Discord Max General Chat, you can click on this, which is GameGuru Max request for plugins and additions. And the crux of this, just to summarize it so you don't have to read the whole thing, is imagine this: Lua scripts that you can write that run continually in GameGuru Max editor and allow you to write your own tooling inside the GameGuru Max editor suite. So you can add buttons to the toolbar, you can add extra items in the menu drop down, you can add additional buttons and gadgets. So all of the UI that you currently see, that's the out-of-the-box stuff that we've currently provided for version 1. But imagine being able to go into some area, maybe a workshop, a library, where you can download and then install, and then instantly you get additional buttons, additional tools, additional functionality. Not like big projects like whole C++ building editor and character creator size tools, but little tools, little add-ons and plugins that do helpful little things in the level editor, and maybe add a little bit of extra functionality inside the character creator or inside the building editor, such that a lot more people can create that kind of plugin than expecting them to know C++ and understand the entire couple of million lines of game engine. All you'd really need to know is 30 or 40 Lua commands and the ability to script those commands in an appropriate and sensible order to create some UI, create some interactions, and then we're able to manipulate the data in the level or the character creator or the building editor or whatever it happens to be. It's not an easy job, this one. There's quite a lot of infrastructure that would need to be created to support even a handful of Lua commands. But the upshot is, once that infrastructure is in place, it's boundless. Anyone can come along with Lua scripting know-how and augment the capabilities of GameGuru Max, the tool. Not the game that gets produced, which is already possible through behaviors and scripts and other things, but actually enhancing the tool itself, entirely driven by the community. So I think it's really exciting. And so there is also a discussion on that. So if you want to chime in, if you think it's a great idea, chime in and suggest what things you'd like to do. I would like to see some people as well maybe wanting to get more active, like want this to actually happen and have a tool in mind. Much better to start creating a set of commands if I already know what commands are needed, because we know what kind of plugin that needs creating, rather than just coming up with a random bag of commands in the hope somebody uses them. So yeah, let's carry on that discussion and see where that leads us. But history has told us, thanks to Monkey Frog Studios, that anytime a tool adopts the idea of a plugin or add-in system, it has longevity, and it can go on for years and years and years, way beyond the original aspirations of the developer. It suddenly becomes property of the community. And finally, before I get to Q&A, because I really want these broadcasts to be very heavy on the Q&A and the demonstrating stuff inside GameGuru Match, I think will be exciting and very visual, is the statement I made in the last broadcast that I'm going to start working on a game. And I just want to give you an update on that. I'm not going to be so selfish as to start creating my game just yet. I completely appreciate that there are just too many bugs and too many bugs set as criticals and highs for me to indulge in making a game. So I think it's important that I spend my energies on getting that bug count down. Once the bug count is down to a satisfactory level, and people can start to tentatively release versions of their game that are stable and fast and all those lovely things, then maybe I can indulge and create a game. But I think it's the fair and correct thing to do, to make sure that the bug base takes priority over a game project. But once we get to that wonderful sweet spot where that's the right, if there is such a thing, a right amount of bugs, then I can start creating a game using some of the stability that's been introduced. And then if there's a couple of bugs that's extant that are in my way, then I can fix them and kill two birds with one stone. So you probably remember I hinted at a format change in the broadcast. I want to reveal the first of them. And see if first of all let's see if this works. And also, I haven't been checking the chat, so if no one can hear me or something horrible's been happening, then yikes, I apologize in advance. But let's see what happens when I click this button. Ta-da! Now, I've been trying to figure this out for quite a while, and I'm hoping this works, because when we actually put out broadcasts on YouTube as a recording, I'm answering questions, but no one can actually see those questions. I have to sort of voice the question and then answer that question. And we've never had the live chat as part of the footage. So now I've set up a system where, if you can see it on the screen and it's all working, everyone can see all of the chats in chronological order on the right, and I've shrunk the main primary display so it retains its aspect ratio, and put a little bit of a graphic at the top and the bottom. I tried not using the graphic and just stretching the display, but I didn't like it how it sort of cut things off. And so now if I go into GameGuru Max, you'll actually see I have the full screen that I can demonstrate, and I can also see the chat at the same time. Now, like I said, this is the first of these new format broadcasts, and I'm still making my way through. And almost immediately what I've discovered is the chat, that you could probably see quite well because you're full screen. I'm viewing it through the OBS software, and the chat window is slightly smaller. So I'm just going to click a button. Ah, perfect. Now I can see the chat at the size where I can see it. So I'm going to scroll to the top. Let's see if it scrolls there as well. Yes, it does. Brilliant. And just as before, I will answer the questions in the order they were asked, and we'll blast through and get as many questions answered as possible. But this time I have the power of GameGuru Max to demonstrate any answers if that's better than a verbal quick answer. So hopefully this works really well, and I'm hoping that in broadcasts of the future we can get through the news section relatively quick, because it's fine learning about stuff, but what you're seeing on screen, YouTube's really designed to watch videos, nothing's moving. You're just staring at the same screen for 15 minutes. Not super exciting. Now maybe we can have a news section, have some sort of carousel of lots of footage, but that's a lot of extra video editing, and I'm assuming you'd rather me be fixing bugs instead of in video editing software for 4 hours. So let's get to the questions that you have. Hopefully I have the answers that will satisfy. And I'm looking for question marks because that's the quickest way I can scroll through the chat and get through as many questions as possible. Is this laggy for everyone else? Yeah, I was worried about that. I was running the intro, and the intro is very graphically intense. So I was hoping that it was simply because that high def video swimming the pixels so much was causing a lot of headaches for the streaming software. It could also be my own personal internet connection, because I have been fiddling around with the network recently, and I want to make sure that it isn't something that I need to deal with for next week. So hopefully by the end of this broadcast I can review all of the feedback, and if I am stuttering, you'll probably have told me by now, and I'll correct it for next week. So yeah, I did spot that, and I will be looking into it if it is a super serious issue for everyone. The first question comes from Duke229, I think. Will the grass be changed? It looks really ugly at the moment. Also, what about wicked features? Will the new fancy stuff make it to GameGuru Max as well? No plans on changing the grass until the lion's share of the bugs have been fixed. Same about the upgrade to the latest version of Wicked. We're leaving that well alone until all the bugs have been fixed. And I think I mentioned it in the 145 broadcast that we're doing what's called a feature freeze. In order to fix all the bugs, it's best if you don't keep adding features at the same time. So once we get the bug down to a reasonable rate, i.e. fast and stable, then we can actually post that build and people can rely on it. Then we'll start upsetting the apple cart, adding lots of strange and clever new features. And specifically, the latest version of the Wicked is a huge rewrite from the Wicked version that we've got. And that could introduce quite a lot of new stability. You'll get a lot of new fancy toys, but you may get a lot of new instability with it. So we want to make sure that we've got something stable before we take that adventurous step. So please don't hold your breath. It might be a while before we get through what I think is just over 300 bugs at the moment. And a follow-up question, will performance be improved as well? Yes. There are a good chunk of issues that have been reported and are in the present list directly related to performance, optimization, and things of that ilk. Those will be attended to before we start talking about unfreezing the feature freeze. It's not the only thing, there's other things, the stability, and then there's general functionality weirdness, but performance is definitely one of those things on the list. Patricio Tapia asks, can we add backpack? Add a backpack. Backpack. Just go back to GameGuru Classic. There was a jetpack. With no plans to add a jetpack into GameGuru Max, but it is extant in GameGuru Classic. If you mean backpack to store items and carry it around your level, there actually is basic support for RPG inventory in GameGuru Max, so you can actually add an inventory screen, then set objects that you can then mark as collectible and collect them and use them and carry them around and drop them, and you can eat them or use them in crafting, etc. So if you mean backpack the inventory, yes, that already exists in GameGuru Max. Maverick1981 asks, will the DirectX 12 and the Wicked merge be reprioritised once the bulk of the fixes have been completed? Yep, you anticipated my win. The latest version of Wicked is very cool. It also has some rather excellent performance advantages. DirectX 12 itself isn't an automatic performance booster. It really isn't. It's just a different way of accessing exactly the same silicon on the graphics. But what it does introduce is the newer technique for screen scaling. So you can render small, stretch it out, but you stretch it out with the benefit of AI, and you still get the quality. So you stretch it out without getting blurred. But the upshot is you're rendering to a smaller surface, which of course means you get faster frame rates. It's a very nice feature, amongst, I dare say, lots of other things. But as I said, I want to introduce stability and solve existing performance issues that have nothing to do with the graphics engine first. Then we'll look at DirectX 12, the latest Wicked engine, and all the other shiny toys. It's so easy to get tempted by a shiny toy and then leave the large chunk of the engine broken whilst you're obsessing over some shiny thing. Whereas 95% of users just want the basic thing fixed, they don't want the shiny thing. And so that's our logic. Question mark is from Super Jolly. Can you show how to make an inventory on a video in a short period of time? We have these. It's not comprehensive, but if you look at the screen and you scroll through, you should find there is one about, maybe there isn't one about, which means it's going to be a great thing to add, about RPG. There isn't, is there? Okay, so that's a great suggestion. I'm sure it exists on the issues board, but if it isn't, you may as well go and have a bit of a browse and maybe add it, which is, the feature request would be, please add a built-in tutorial on going through the main features of the RPG system. Now, I just might happen to know, if I go into guides, that we have, you may not know what these are. In fact, I'll show you how to get at it without going into Windows Explorer. If you go into any of your projects, so this is just an empty one, so you're nestled in here and you're doing your thing, and then you want to know how to use something. If you go into the help folder, there's a drop down called guides folder, and if you click on guides folder, it basically opens up Windows Explorer and opens into all these subfolders, and these subfolders each have a guide specifically about different subjects, behaviors, how to, this is more for artists, how to create your own booster packs. This is one on how to create characters. The HUD guide, that's probably one you want to look at, because that contains a lot of the RPG information you might want. And there's an NPC control behavior that needs a lot of explanation, so that's what that's about, creating your own objects. This is another one that's RPG related, so I would say look at the HUD and the quest subfolders to get an idea of maybe the question that you're asking, or the questions you're asking have already been answered. And of course, failing that, there's always the 240-page user guide that we created as well. And then, of course, there's a weapons guide along with some samples. So if you didn't know about the guides folder, that's a pretty cool thing to have. But yeah, check out those guides first. And if you're still struggling to the answers that you want, then yeah, I think a built-in tutorial is probably a great way to go about it. Because I do think it's important that not only is the built-in tutorials a good, like, 2-minute tour of an entire feature within the software, but it advertises what kind of features GameGuru Max can do, which isn't always obvious when you're playing the demos. Okay, and looking for another question mark. Yes, here's one from Tom. Do we have to subscribe to Necrum's new scripts, or do they auto-download? They auto-download. At the moment, I actually know there's only like one trusted Steam user, and that's Necrum. So I know his Steam ID. I also know his workshop item, and so it was easy to tell GameGuru Max, the software, to look for that workshop item, auto subscribe to it, and then make sure that the latest version of that workshop item exists in GameGuru Max latest version. So it's done for you. Really don't have to do anything. In fact, unless had I not mentioned it, you wouldn't even have known all this was going on, except for little subtleties. I'll give you an example of what I mean by subtleties. If you look at, in fact, I'm probably not best showing that. I need to drop in an item. I don't know. This is not going to be appropriate, but I just need to get at behaviors. Yeah. So this is what we call the behavior library, and you may notice, it's a subtle thing, but every now and again you'll see a behavior that has in brackets by Necrum 59. and that's the trader one. But if you look at RPG, it's crammed. Chest by Necrin 59, drink by Necrin 59. And what you're looking at here is these scripts used to exist out of the core product. But to be fair, the core team didn't write the majority of the RPG and puzzles, it was Necrin. And so not only is it for credit, because these actually belong to Necrin, but if you want to know the exclusive list, then you can go into a new folder called Community, and you can see Necrin here. This immediately and directly connects to the workshop item to which it belongs. And you can see all of the folders covered. So RPG, all of these, all the puzzle ones, the trader that I showed you earlier, and then of course all the objects and the markers, a couple of horrors and some effects as well. So as I hope the contributions through the workshop will grow, everyone who contributes will actually be credited right off the bat. It also helps that if you've got like 3 behaviours all called glow but written by different people, then the title can distinguish between each one. And if you just click the RPG at the top, that's a general search term, and it will just give you every behaviour from everyone who's contributed who happens to have classified and meta tagged their item as related to RPG. That gives you a little bit of a sneak idea of, if you weren't quite sure of what you were looking for, that's the subtle change, and now you know that this version is being powered by the Steam Workshop as well as our own internal builds. So I just wanted to show you that. As I said, it could take me a while to get used to, but anytime I can demonstrate in the software, I just think it's a better broadcast than me just waxing lyrical over it and actually showing you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I think that we was up to that one. The one beneath is that, and one beneath is that. I'm still looking for a question mark. Sorry if I'm skipping a question that didn't have a question mark on it, but otherwise I'd be taking a very long time reading every single line. So it looks like another one from Tom. When the new project folder system starts working, will all pre-built levels and entities autos need pathways updating too? Not at all. All of your existing stuff will continue to work as it currently does. The new project system will kick in when you start a new project from that build onwards. Because when you, in fact, I just mentioned it, I should actually demonstrate it, shouldn't I? So let's go back to the hub, go into My Games. This big plus means you can create a new project. This dialogue at the moment is really rather simple, don't you think? All it really lets you do is type out the name of your project, and GameGuru Max kind of takes care of the rest. Not necessarily treating you like an idiot, but doesn't give you any additional options. So part of the design of the new project system is not only get to specify the project, you also get to specify where that project is to be stored. And some people are working on projects even now that have gigabytes of media that they've created for their games, and they don't want those gigabytes of media on the C drive, in the writables area. They want it on an SSD or on a USB stick or somewhere else. And so this is the point. When you create the project, you can specify that far-flung area where all your future game project files will live and exist. And also you'll be able to take your old projects and migrate them to the new project system. That's also fine. But when we introduce this new system, it won't break all the old stuff. The old stuff still needs to work anyway because it's mostly based. It's the demos, these demos that you see in the hub, they all kind of use the old system, and so they'll continue to do so. It's only the new projects with the additional powers which will have these new attributes. So do not worry about forwards compatibility. If you've got something that works now, in 6 months' time, it should still work. Okay, the chat has been scrolling, and hopefully I don't... I think maybe it's scrolled too far, but hopefully not. So that was that question. Yeah, okay, great. So the next question mark down is from eTurpin. Hello, can I get an invite for Discord, please? Can someone sort that out during the Discord, please? I don't really know how to do that. I think it's just a case of clicking accept, but I assumed anyone can join Discord. I didn't realise it was an invite only. But I do recall, yeah, seeing get invite. So maybe if a moderator can just click that, that would be awesome. Or I'm talking rubbish and I don't know what I'm talking about at all. But yeah, anyone should be able to join Discord. That's, I think in the future, going to be our primary source of chat and gossip and news outside of the framework of some weekly summaries and these monthly broadcasts, you will probably want your news thicker and faster than that. Okay, looking for another question, Mark. I love GameGuru Max. Thank you very much. Not technically a question, but I'll take that. Looking for a question, Mark, and I'm not finding it. There is one buried in here. Maybe that. Oh, there's one here. And is there one here? Nope, there's probably one here. This is from Sorry, I can't pronounce half of any of that. Let's call Kepra. Right, hello. Tell me, what are the few further plans to improve GameGuru Max dynamics of destruction of objects? Yeah, what a great subject. There's no immediate plans. As I say, we're currently feature frozen, so we're just assaulting the bug list right now and getting that down to a nice small level. We have experimented with destructible objects in the past, but they've always been very specific items, and the pieces that come off the object have been created by an artist. And in fact, there are media even now that artists are creating that begin as a whole thing, and then when you damage them, they break apart in various ways. And that can be done right now by a technical artist in GameGuru Max. But I think what you're asking is dynamic destruction of objects, similar to maybe how you set up an object with collision. So you'll say, I want mine to be a sphere or a cylinder or a polygon or a convex hole. What if there's another category which says you are either normal or you are destructible? And if you are destructible, what technique do you want to use to divide up the 3D and modify the textures? And what granularity do you want? Is it just a single destruction, or can you maybe have a window pane that smashes into two, and then each piece can turn into another 5, which again turn into and it's quite a whole subject, destructible scenery and destructible items. And it does sort of feather in rather nastily into gameplay. If you destroy something that you actually need to complete the game, that's probably not going to be any good. So we know the techniques. They're easily available on open source. There's lots of good documented stuff. We don't really have to invent that wheel. But we're not adding any new features until the bug the bug list is a little bit smaller. But I do like the idea of destructible scenery, because it means you're not reliant on an artist to very specifically create that destructible item. You could basically take any object from the thousands of models that you can discover through the library and DLCs and other places, and just switch on destructibility and specify how they destroy. I think that'll be a really cool feature. And again, it opens up the things you can do in GameGuru Max without necessarily having to get dirty with code and dive right into 3D modelers, which you probably don't want to do, especially if you're just starting off learning how to make games relatively quickly. So hopefully that answered some of the question. Not now, but possibly in the future. This is a question from Duke229. I saw, let me cursor over it, I saw that the GitHub has over 1,000 reported issues. How do you not drone in the massive requests, and how do you keep the important issues in sight? By the way, I love GameGuru, and it's insane. Yeah, the 1,000 bugs, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of them are feature requests. If you look for enhancement as a tag and then sort of press Alt and click the enhancement tag, it will remove all the feature requests from the list, and that thousands and thousands of items shrinks quite a bit. And that means I don't necessarily drone. If I know I've only got 300 bugs to worry about and only 100 of those are pseudo-critical, it means I don't drone and I can sleep at night. But like everything, you know, even the highest mounting is ascended. So you start with a big list, and that list gets a bit smaller, then a bit smaller, and before you know it, we're at GameGuru Classic, where for updates at a time, we was at the 0 bug count. Every bug that was reported was fixed. Fair enough, in GameGuru Classic, all the feature requests continue to grow, but by targeting bugs and being relentless about it, you can effectively get to virtually 0. It will take a while, but we will get there. And fear not, I am not droning. In fact, I consider it something of a challenge to see how many of those I can get rid of and how quickly I can do it. Okay, Spiky Milk. Oh, Spicy Milk, sorry. Sorry, just joined. Can you give Cliff Notes at the end? If anyone likes to summarise the waffle that I've been doing in the last 20 minutes, feel free and go ahead and post it here. But I highly encourage you to watch this video from scratch. It's going to be on YouTube after the end of this broadcast as a recording. And you can watch the whole thing, and hopefully it won't take too long to watch. Just looking at the clock now, we're 42, after the universe and everything. Minus the 2 minutes for the delayed start, so that's 40 minutes in. I think we'll try and keep these new broadcasts under an hour, so you don't have to commit half a day to watching them. Duke229, lots of question marks, but no actual questions, so maybe you want to throw one in. Forgot my question marks, lol. You might want to repeat the question, Duke229. I'm sure we do have time, and I think the chat list isn't too long. You can get that one again if indeed a question hasn't been asked. Happy to answer it. Okay, D. Amon is replying to Spicy Milk and looking for a question mark. Can you fix the rain effect? The rain effect and the snow effect that currently exists in GameGuru Max, those are pretty much what you're going to have to live with for the time being. As I said, it's a feature freeze. I also accept they are quite primitive effects. There's a lot of things you really want snow and rain to do that they currently don't do. So for now, consider them sort of placeholders, and don't rely on rain or snow to really be a strong narrative in how your game unfolds, at least in the short term. And then keep tuning into these broadcasts, and when we announce shiny new rain and very clever and interesting and sticky snow, then maybe you can build that into a future game idea where rain and snow are critical, along with wind and lightning and thunder and all the other cool stuff. But for now, yeah, it's not the most impressive rain and snow. I apologise. And DM on. Oh, sorry. We've just got it's underneath Lee. Sounds great. Yeah, I'm afraid you're going to have to repeat the whole question in total, because I'm heading downwards on these live chats. DM asks, will the standalone in-game menu options ever be updated? Standalone in-game menu options ever be updated? Would be nice to have standard options for players like key bindings, graphics options, resolution. Yeah, I'll answer that in two parts. The first part is you can change the in-game menu through the storyboard. That's something you can do right now. If I just click on this project, just to give you an idea, I assume you're referring to the initial menu, which is this. You know, you can move the buttons around, change the text, graphics and color and all the rest of it. You can also go in and change the sound and the graphics menu, and every sub menu off the in-game HUD menu screen you can actually customize. The second part of the answer, which I suspect is you're leading to, is we want more than this. We want more than low, medium and high. We want granularity control over shadows. How much shadows? How far do the shadows render? What resolution should the shadows render in? Every setting that you might find in a modern game menu, you would want to have as a gadget in here. I think when we get to that point, and it may happen naturally as we work on the optimization and performance aspects that have already been reported on GitHub, we may find it necessary to actually have that granularity as part of this. The first time you'll get a note of that is when the next time you open a new project, you might see a little tick box which says Classic HUD and Advanced HUD. And when you click Advanced HUD, much like you get when you go into the View Advanced Settings and these additional screens pop up, you may get more sophisticated graphic settings and additional screens with new things like key bindings for keyboard and mouse, game controllers and VR controllers. As I said, feature frozen, so we're not really thinking about that too much. Let's get a few bugs fixed. But yeah, that is not a new issue. That's something a lot of people are kind of holding their breath and waiting for. But it will come in the format of updated screens, gadgets available for you to add and subtract and customize as your game needs. So when people play a game and go into the in-game menu, it's as unique as you want it to be for your game. So hopefully that gives you a clue as to where we are now, what you can do now, and what you might be able to do in the future. It was a question of thank you, Lee. Okay, hopefully I've answered it. Made tutorial how to better. Okay, cool, great. Duke229, if you can post that link to Patricio, that would be awesome in the live chat, and then everyone can benefit from it. Hooray! Finally, a question from Fearless Wee. Question. With version 1 out of the way, is there any plans for a roadmap? It is a bit difficult to plan a project that requires one or more feature requests to make it in, but I've no idea if they're coming. Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't plan a game project until I've even played with the feature and tested it and seen its capabilities before I start planning a game out that used a feature. To plan a game project on a feature that's coming, a couple of sentences written on a roadmap, I certainly wouldn't be planning a game project around that. I'd want to be able to create prototypes with the feature already in place and be confident that that feature delivers what I want it to do before I build a game around it. So I will put that horse before that particular cart. But more generally, is there going to be a roadmap after GameGuru Max version 1? I don't think so. Every time we've projected too far out with a roadmap, development kicks in. The realities of development, the length of time it takes to add a particular feature, or another feature morphs so quickly it becomes something different, and yet there are other users who are waiting for the original proposal to be fulfilled, and it's too late because we've gone off on a tangent and created something entirely different from the same starting point. So roadmaps can be dangerous. It's easy if you were just creating potatoes or pies. Very easy to project out a nice long roadmap. But with a product like this, certainly I will telegraph, just as I've talked about, a new project system and eventual integration of Steam Workshop and other Steam elements. All these things are tantalizingly close. But a big long roadmap spelling out the next 10 features? No. Feel free to argue with me on that point, and roadmaps are essential, etc. It just hasn't worked in the past, and I think if we try to do one again, it would just lead to disappointment and expectations unfulfilled. But please do tune into these broadcasts, and I will be hinting at more of a short-term roadmap of what is imminent and maybe what is already being worked on. At least you have a bit of a bit of solidity on which to stand, and don't worry too much about planning a game project for 12 months from now. I still think GameGuru Max is super early. As you've seen, there's not really been that many games made in it. It was literally just launched, and I think it might take like a whole year to bed it down way after all these current bugs have been fixed and we've got more speed and stability. Even then, we'll be waiting for those big games to show what GameGuru Max can do, and only with that we'll be able to look at those and say, yes, I have confidence that I can create something of that scale and of that quality. But certainly dream, absolutely dream, big dreams. That's where great big productions come from. But we can't give you an exact timelined roadmap on when all of these magical new features are going to appear. So it's just a case of tuning in, reading the summaries and the progress, and sort of guesstimating where the next 2 to 3 months is going to lead you, and then join us in the journey as new features slowly come online. Okay, question marks. I'm going to have to scroll up a little bit. My eyeball. Oh, 2 question marks. This is from Buzzardiz Gaming. Can we get that options menu to main menu screen so player could choose the settings before starting the new game? That's a good question, actually. You see these little arrows that you have here? So you've got that. So correct me if I'm wrong, but some sort of weird scenario where you could have, it first goes into a settings screen and then there's like an output arrow, and then you can drag that. I don't really have an output arrow, but sort of drag that to connect to your title screen. So there's a settings and then it goes to the start menu. That was always the idea of the storyboard, that these are your screens and you can connect them up in any order you want, and you have control over the logic for the interconnections of things. Right now it's a bit of both. You get all that kind of non-linear control when you're in this level section, bouncing from level 1 to level 3, which can go to like a level hub, which can spider out to like 5 other levels. Oh, that's really cool. And then link them onto other screens. But this first part, the splash screen to the title, to the loading and saving, to the in-game, that's, well, it's hard-coded, but it's sort of, it's forcing you back into the world of scripts, which kind of defeats the object of having a storyboard. So I think there's still some work to do. But I would very much appreciate if you'd either drop it into the issues board or even email me at lee@thegamecreators.com a case scenario of exactly what you mean by a screen that precedes the start game. And maybe even an example of an existing game out there that uses that, just so I can have a flavour of how it looks and how it all works from screen to screen to screen. But ultimately, yeah, if there is such a thing out there and it's pretty common and everyone really wants that as an option when making games, I want the storyboard to be able to do that intuitively, quickly and easily. So please do drop me a line and give me a few more details on that. That would be great. Okay, got a question mark from Synchro62. Someone mentioned arrow key control being floaty and mouse movement also. This rectifies when you use, what's it again? Can you check it quickly? I can show you. It's actually a feature. It's one of those undocumented features that people are going to moan at me. It's like, hey, you should fix this. It's like, I've actually spent 2 days writing that. Thank you very much. Right, let me show you what it is. Hopefully this wasn't an enemy I've just dropped down. Now you stay put. Right, WASD, W key, A, S, D keys. That's basically forwards, backwards, left and right. Watch what happens when I use the arrow keys, which is the 4 up, down, left and right. Arrow keys on the right of the keyboard. Now you might not be able to see it in the streaming, especially if we've still got intermittency issues, but it's soft. When I rotate, look, see, that's me rotating the mouse. Look how slow it is. And when you move, how long it takes to stop and start. That's deliberate. And why have I created that? I've created it because you can then do lovely fly-throughs. If I was walking around like this, ding, 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 it looks really bad in when you're doing a video recording. But if you use the arrow keys, you don't have to go out and set a new mode and come back in. Just use the arrow keys instead, and you can do nice, smooth fly-throughs like that. And it's really good for recording a bit of game footage, saving that video, and then triggering it with a video zone if you want to do a little bit of a cutscene. So that was it as a feature. Now perhaps maybe I should flash up a little warning on the screen initially each time you launch Max to say you are entering camera dolly mode or something like that, but it's actually a feature and it's not a bug. So there. But do let me know if maybe it needs to be explained a little more, and if it does, where should I explain it? Okay, another question right underneath. This is from Furzane Life. Hello, I want to make a, what's this one? Russifier, but I can't find a folder with all of the text in GameGuru Max. Can you tell me where it is? All of the texts in GameGuru Max, it's everywhere. It's inside scripts, it's hard-coded into the code, it's in little text files floating around. GameGuru Max came from GameGuru Classic, which came from FPS Creator Reloaded, which came from FPS Creator, which borrows a lot of technology from Dirt Basic Pro. And so you can imagine there's quite a lot of places we have placed text. There is currently no translation kit for GameGuru Max. We felt it important enough to get it working on one platform in one language, sufficient that it can actually produce a game that's stable and fast. Once we get to that point, I think it makes perfect sense to create a translation kit, unify all the usage of the text into a single location, so anyone can take that text, translate it, share it in the Steam community, have others test it and verify it, and once enough verification has happened, then we flick a switch and GameGuru Max can suddenly be translated into whatever languages the community want. I do think that's a really great idea, but I say let's get the product solid first. Then, once we know the full extent of that solid product, we can pull out all the text. Now, that's not to say you couldn't do it right now. The source code is available on GitHub for the entirety of GameGuru Max. And if somebody wants to pour through a couple of million lines of code, pulling out all manner of text, and create a clever system to then swap that text out for a translated version, absolutely great. Get in touch. I am actually looking for contributors both on GameGuru Classic repository and GameGuru Max repository. We already have some community luminaries already, but we can always do with more. So if it was a translation kit you was talking about, hopefully that gives you some insights into where we are now and where we might be a little way down the road. Questions. Who's got the questions? I'm going to scroll down through the smileys and exclamation marks, hitting bang, the end of the live chat, and no more question marks. Looking at the time, we're 57 minutes minus the 2, that's 55, so well under the hour. I didn't know whether these broadcasts with an extended Q&A would stretch to an hour, but it sounds like it's going to, so maybe that's the format moving forward. But I don't want to spend the next 5 minutes doing a super waffle when we can end it there and keep it nice and sharp. Please let me know in the Discord how you felt this new format broadcast went. Any changes you feel would improve the presentation and how it comes across. And is there any way we can improve it so it's more beneficial to people who watch it on YouTube later on? But for now, I want to thank you for your kind attention. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for showing up. It's amazing that everyone figured out and we snuck in this end of the month broadcast and managed to show up for it. So thank you for that. And as I said, I will be back next month. That will be the last Wednesday of June, where I'll be able to report on all the news of the day, everything that happened that caught my attention. If they think there's something that's newsworthy, email it to me and I'll try and mention it in the broadcast. And of course an extended Q&A with actual demonstrations if you've got any questions specifically about GameGuru Mac software. So until June, thanks very much for listening and attending, and I'll speak to you all then. Until then, I'll say goodbye.